Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to The Challenge. I'm John Chapman, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, endeavoring to bring religion and politics back to the dining room table. And this discussion today is going to be very interesting around the dining room table. I'm glad to have everybody with us. It is June, and I'm here to say the most important thing about June is June 6th, I think.
For sure.
Absolutely. Glenn, thanks for joining us in the studio today. We're going to have a pretty spirited conversation, but an important one. I think we need to tie to that. First of all, I want to pay homage to the act that was done at the beach on June 6th.
Yeah, D-Day, Normandy.
Yeah.
A very important part of American history, world history, European history, fill in the blank history. Definitely something we want to recognize and pay tribute to those folks. I know that was the first time really that American soldiers had gotten into war in Europe, the South Pacific. They'd been there for a while, but this is a very important day. I hope everyone remembers.
It is. God bless those families that participated in that, those who had lost the lives in that, and those families that are still, pondering that happened from family members with them. And you know what? I bring that up because we're going to be talking about and before we get into this, it is officially, I guess, so I'm told, because I saw all the banners go up in everybody's houses, Pride Month. And when I say all those, I mean the two that went up in a square mile or whatever, and where I live, and there's quite a few more of those, Pride Month or whatever, and we're gonna have a discussion around that. But I want to get to, I want to share with people something that's happening over in Jones County. The Jones County Republican women are sponsoring an event. And the reason that I want to have this discussion around this, Glenn, as you know, I went out and saw Rand Paul last week. And while I was there, I bumped into some pretty interesting people, and some of them were from the Jones County Republican women. And I had an excellent conversation with this young lady. And, we here at the ministry just finished biblical citizenship, the course. And it was absolutely fantastic. And I bumped into three other people who have also been through the course. And I'm like, whoa, because I maybe this is just one of those little things that's kind of going around again. I went, no, there's a lot more people going through this. And Tim Barton, the son of David Barton, is coming. She's telling me this. I'm like, what? I'm getting goosebumps. Like, you got to be kidding me. They're coming to town. So for you, the listener, first I want to say there's a tremendous opportunity for you to hear from an organization, Wall Builders. That's who they are, right, Glenn?
Yep, that's what David Barton started. Yep.
David Barton started Wall Builders, and his son, Tim Barton, who was also in those videos briefly or early on in the series, apparently does a lot of the traveling and talking for Wall Builders now, and that is happening here in Iowa. And I want to tell people you have an opportunity. Now, it's a couple hours drive from where you are, but you can, if you look up on the screen there on this podcast, we have a close-up up there of that. And this is there's Tim Barton right there, and it's going to happen June 21st. So it's coming up in a couple weeks here, 2-3 weeks here, pretty soon, 2.5 weeks. And I want you to have this opportunity. It might be a bit of a drive for you, you think, but you can go get tickets at Eventbrite for this. They're $30 a piece. You can also do a sponsorship where you buy a whole table for 10 people or for 5 people in groups, and you can do that. And this is happening June 21st, and it is happening. I see general admission $30 at the Camp Courageous Durgan Pavilion. And let me see here if I can see this. I don't know. Can you try to zoom up on that just a little bit, Mr. Willman? Is that as close as we can get? It's going to be my bad in there because I want to find the location on there. Tim Barton, Wall Builders, and you can look this information up there. We're good. And you can, we're going to be talking about this next podcast too, the opportunity to go there. I'm going to tell you $30 is a very reasonable price. It's not a lot of money to go hear some very important information on the Constitution. And I'm telling you, this organization, Wall Builders, this is a key link for, and I want to say in particular, believers who don't understand the importance of the Constitution, the importance of the historical documents that have been written, and the importance of understanding who those people were and why you are more tied to the history of this country than you think, based on the fact that you're a God-fearing individual. And they bring it there. So Tim Barton, June 21st, it is happening. General admin, $30. and it's being put on by the Jones County Republican women. I'm sure you can go to each county. Each Republican county has their own website that you can go there and check that out. But I would encourage you to do that. See if that's something you wouldn't want to go to. I'm putting the consideration right now and checking the calendar. It's going to be a bit of a drive, but maybe you can get a couple people in a car and go out there. And you're not supporting. I want to say you're not supporting the endeavor. You're coming away with information that is absolutely critical to understanding why you vote the way you vote, and why maybe as a Christian you would take more seriously your citizenship too. And so that would be a very important event. Hope you can find time to make that. Now, with that being said, onward. I'm going to say, Glenn, I didn't realize. I hear a lot of discussion. I've heard others talk about Marxism. We hear the history of Marxism, the history of Karl Marx, what he did. But when I began to understand the tie, and we've been having these discussions about this, and I'm going to kind of hand you a baton. I just want you to tear it up. Who knew that Marxist ideology would sponsor this month wholeheartedly?
Yeah.
Sponsor wholeheartedly.
That's the tricky thing, and that's the thing that just doesn't make the news. And our opinions. I was, reading a news story the other day about The View, right? And there's always somebody on The View that has an opinion about something else. Yeah, us two, we're just like them. We're nobody, and The View is literally nobody. So we're challenging people to look for themselves at these types of things, and this is one of these things too. And I think I reiterated earlier, John, that Memorial Day is a celebration of those that had perished in war for our freedoms. So the best way we can honor them is the way we're going to do it today, which is to practice our First Amendment right of free speech. We're going to practice that today, and we're not going to be intimidated by the LGBT lobby or anybody else. We're going to have free speech because people died so that we could.
Yeah.
So that's where we started with this. So the fact that we have a full month dedicated to this lobby, there is no other lobby that has a full month dedicated to it. We talk about Normandy, right? We'll celebrate that on June 6th.
Right.
How many Americans died in battle in Normandy? And look at the rest of the year. Look at all the islands that the Marines stormed in World War II. We don't celebrate any of that.
Right.
But we're donating a whole month to the Marxist ideology of LGBT. And that's really what it is. And is there any documents, any representation of that from the past? And of course there is. And the thing about it is in the LGBT community, they think that if you speak against the LGBT group, right, which is a lobby, that you hate those people.
Right.
And that's not it at all. Not it at all.
No.
Now, they blend those two things together to try to silence you. So you can't speak out against Marxism because now you are homophobe.
Right.
You can see how they cross the lines there. And it's like, no such thing. Not at all. Well, you're religious, therefore, no. I'm relying on the mercy of God because I'll give an account of my life to him.
Right.
That's where I am. So this isn't one of those things, but it's also one of those things that as a believer in Christ, I look at the last days and I see a template that's put in place by John in the book of Revelation. And it says the last governing system that will be around will be one that has a dictator at the top and has a template of subordinates below that will all worship him and all have to participate in an economic system that this guy establishes. And so it wouldn't be a bad idea to look to see recently what systems like that have been occurring in the world. And wouldn't you know, Marxism might come to the very top of that. From guys that I've even talked to, like I've got friends and colleagues from Romania, and they will tell you what that looks like.
But they've experienced something that I feel like the gay lobby left, the LGBTQ. And I think it's interesting that the LGBTQ communities come on so strong as a lobby. It's even rocking the gay community's ideals a little bit. And we're seeing some of that, and we might be able to get to that too. But this tie-in, because just right now, I've just run a quick internet search on, and I just typed in, is the LGBTQ actually Marxist? And what's interesting is you have all these liberal sites come up and say, oh, the problem with Marxism is they were still anti-gay. And we're about to debunk that. And about to have an explanation about why that is. And you need to understand this is not the case.
No.
And also, Glenn, when you said that, And I've heard people say this. What do you matter? Are you afraid of gays? What are you, homophobe? So that always comes with an accusation.
Always.
Right. And there's always an accusation. And then people, Christians in particular, I think, suffer to this. They go, oh, no, no, no. And they start defending them. So I'm not
Yep.
homophobe. I'm not homophobic. No, I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid. Wait a minute. They're setting up the premise and
Right.
for the discussion. And in the end, you don't even end up landing on the scriptures because you're too busy defending yourself, saying, well, no, I'm not a homophobe.
Right.
Well, what is a homophobe in the first place? And
I don't know.
and instead of speaking to the truth, they get you defending.
Yeah.
And so, again, the premise of being a Christian is walking in the righteousness of Christ, which means you don't have the guilt of having to worry about righteousness. That comes from Christ himself.
Yep.
And so we need to be more confident going, what's homophobia have anything to do with this? And we want to clarify that.
Well, it's the accusation that comes along with Marxist ideology. And Marxist ideology, you have to understand that these are very direct goals that have been in place for more than 100 years, according to some authors. And we've got an author here that we'll maybe reference a little bit later. But so it's been around for a long time. And the idea is to lie, cheat, and steal at every possible turn to convince a Western society to give up its sovereignty. And to do that, you have to give up your morals, your ethics, your honor, any of your free will, and especially God. You have to give up God. Karl Marx understood this to a T, and some of the literature, clearly says, hey, I have to replace God with me, and then I want everybody to be like me, and that will be communism. And so when that system is put in place, you have to understand that the things, Lenin called them useful idiots.
Right.
So you've got people that are perpetuating this notion that haven't the first clue what's really going on at the top.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, particularly in the LGBT, we see things that are disassociated entirely with the topic, and they're promoting the idea that, okay, if you believe in God, you must be silent. You cannot speak. And if you get around this community, this is what we call it. I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about this. We self-censor.
Right.
Which means we approach them and go, oh, you do? Okay, well, then I'll just be quiet.
Right.
And that violates the First Amendment of the Constitution. And even in the world of legal, the Alliance Defending Freedom has had Supreme Court precedents where they have won and said, listen, you've called this compelled speech, where a corporation or a school comes in and says, we're telling you this is what you can think and say. And the Supreme Court said, that's not what the Constitution says, but that's what Pride Month is all about.
Yeah.
We will tell you what to believe. It's not anything else. But unfortunately, the people that are affected by this, both positively and negatively, think that it is about rights.
Yeah.
And that's the scary thing is until you get to the actual topic of it, you'll never see that. I work with people that have chosen this lifestyle all the time.
Yeah.
They're some of the best people in the world to work with. I have no problem whatsoever. And I tell you what, if anyone ever gave them trouble because of their lifestyle choice, I would come unglued.
Right.
And I would protect them with every fiber of my body because that's morally wrong. And that's not at all the issue. They're going to be treated well. They do a great job. They do what they're supposed to do, probably better than most. And if you insult them or humiliate them, that's not happening on my watch.
Right.
But you wouldn't think so, right? Because I believe in Christ. So therefore, I've already got the label. So even if I did defend him, and I have, they've already given you the label.
That part and parcel, that takes away your freedom of speech. What's happening is that when they say, hey, you're labeling us or you're condemning us for our actions, and it doesn't work to use a counter argument by labeling Christians and condemning them for what you perceive to be their beliefs,
right?
Which makes you unwilling to engage in a conversation with a Christian, a genuine conversation. Is right. Well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the merits of this.
Right.
Let's talk about what the Word of God has written about this. Let's talk about who Jesus Christ is, and stop condemning me as a Christian or judging me as a Christian. And I want to say this too to the listener. If you're a Christian, you're an easy target. Most Christians are soft targets for intimidation and condemnation. One, keep your conscience clear by staying in fellowship with people and being humble.
Yep.
I would really recommend believers start there. We had this conversation around men's group. We were talking about, humility is paramount to being true in your walk. But number two, at the point that we start judging or condemning, and then be very clear about it, I'm not making an apology for this. At the point that we start condemning a sin as being greater than another, right? It is sin. That the fruit of a sinful nature can be walking in homosexuality as a choice. Just like all fruit can be a sin of something else from our heart.
Absolutely.
And
we've all been involved.
We've all been involved. But that doesn't make the choice of homosexuality correct. But at the point the church says, well, look, those people, they're choosing that lifestyle, I don't know if there's any hope for them. If the church were to ever proclaim that, you couldn't be any more incorrect
Exactly.
based on what the grace of God is there for. And so Christians have a hard time with this concept. They do. They don't want to condemn anybody, but they don't want to call it wrong. God doesn't condemn anybody. He says you condemn yourself. You judge yourself based on the actions you've done because he's righteous, but he doesn't ever condone it.
No.
So that's what, if you're a Christian, you don't understand God doesn't condone it. You're being changed in your thinking by self-censoring and being condemned by these kind of accusations. Back to the Marxist idealism here.
Yeah.
What is this? I didn't realize it hailed from such a strong historical attitude.
Yeah.
And you have some literature.
I do. Yeah.
It's going to be like reading bedtime story to us today, Glenn. Because when you start putting this forward, basically what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to sit back and say, read me a story. Just read a song like our dad used to do. Remember Dad used to read at the dinner table?
Oh, yeah.
And I used to enjoy that. He'd read C.S. Lewis stuff to us. That's how we learned about the books of Narnia, and Dad would read to us.
Oh, yeah.
Glenn, just be Dad. And you can read to us about Marxism. It's a little bit different than Aslan and Mr. Tumnus, but it's worth it. Sorry.
Substantially different, actually. Well, let me preface this just a little bit because this is one of the references. There was a documentary that was out some time ago. I want to say maybe 2007, called Agenda, Grinding American Down. Oh, yeah. And it had several people that I knew and respected in the documentary, and they talked at length about what kind of Marxist strategies were at the time. And that's almost 20 years ago now, 18 years ago. So it's just hard to believe that much time has gone by. But it was very concerned. And there was a congressman that was seated that actually said, hey, listen, this is real. This is going to be a problem. This has been on the books for some time. And one of the books that he cited in the documentary was called The Naked Communist, that was written by author Cleon Skousen. And he mentions that, and I thought, okay, I'm one of those guys, if they say it, I want to read it. I want to figure out where it is. So I got the book. It's an ebook. I downloaded it. It's super cheap. The book was published in 1958. And Mr. Skousen had done research with the FBI and other organizations, for a long time to get this stuff organized. And a lot of the report he actually gave on the floor of the Congress was presented in sometime later. I don't remember it was in the 60s when it was actually presented to the Congress to look at his evaluations and see what the Communist Party was doing globally and worldwide. What was happening, and could this be infiltrating in the United States? And at the time, there was a committee on un-American activities that was actually in place. And of course, Joe McCarthy was involved in this in the Senate in the 1950s as well. And the one thing that they went after today in modern society is Joe McCarthy and that group. Right. They want to pretend like it never happened and none of this was wrong, which of course is part of the deal. So anyway, he writes this book in 1958, and it's important to put the time in perspective. I wasn't around in 1958. Yeah. And this literature that, some of the things we'll read here out of the book is unimaginable in 1958. It's just unimaginable. I mean, you're not that far away from the Second World War.
Right.
And here's some of the statements that he made. And so
13 and a half years to be exact from the Second World War.
Yeah, exactly.
Right from the closure.
Very close.
And a little note before you read here. So I typed that in on Google. It didn't bring one thing up until I completed typing The Naked Communist. Just a little FYI that we all know how. I have to throw that out there, right? Because when we talk about this, well, maybe nobody's interested. No, I'm pretty confident millions of people have been interested in this. I've heard it now all the time, and it didn't bring it up until I had the whole thing typed in there.
And that's another lesson for another day, right? When it comes down to podcast.
I had to throw that busted like I caught him.
If you type things in Google, it's going to pull up what it wants you to know. That they want you to know. Yep. And that's actually being dealt with right now at the federal level. How much involvement is the government involved in censoring social media? Right. And it would be shocking. Anyway, that's another title for another day.
Sorry.
But yeah, and so that does illustrate too, if you try to find this information. It took me a while to get this. In fact, at the time, I bought a copy on Amazon, and I've got a hard copy at home, and it took a while to get it.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to get some used copy, from some dude in Kentucky or whatever. So I got the thing. But then they finally did an ebook of it. So it was fascinating. So this is interesting. In the forward here, Mr. Skousen says this, and I'll read just a little bit of John. I don't want to hog the time here, but it might be good to set the stage.
We've got time, and the reason too why, Glenn, because I know there's elements of this that many people have heard now. I mean, it gets to a point where you're like, oh yeah, I've heard that. That's why I want to give you the time to, as you see fit.
Okay.
Because this information before this, it makes that information 10 times more impactful.
Right.
Now that I've heard this.
And one of the things we like to do as Americans, we like to prognosticate, right? We want to know what the future is. We're going to guess the future. So for me, the things that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up is seeing what someone prognosticated back in the 50s happening.
Totally.
And it's like, what? How did this guy know this?
Right.
What did he see that the rest of us didn't see? And B, why aren't we hearing about it at all?
Right.
And let's just be clear. And the author does make some point in this. Communism was a terrible thing. From the Russian Revolution all the way up to Cuba, in China right now. I've been to China several times. They do not have freedom there. I don't care what anyone says. They don't have it.
Yeah.
They don't have it. And if you're a religious person in China, you better go with the party religion or you're going to cease to exist and no one will find you.
Yeah.
That's China.
Yeah.
And Russia, they're no different. And it's all garbage when they say that it is, because it's not. If you are in a communist country, you live subservient to the government, period, full stop.
And people that don't believe that don't understand that. We had our son work in Moscow, Russia for 6 months. And I said to him, so did you really feel the surveillance? He said, Dad, you have no idea. and this is a guy who's not a conspiracy theorist.
Not
this
at
is
all.
of my kids.
Not
He's the
at
one that's
all.
like, he's the realist. He's like, Dad, this was serious. He said, there wasn't one moment I didn't think I was not only being known or understood or what I said, what I was doing and when I was going. He said, everything I had to do to get in there opens myself up to all this. And he's not that guy. That's the thing about it. He's not that guy. He goes,
I know.
without question. And we've had a couple from the ministry adopt out of Russia. And they said, oh, yeah, you go there. This is not a joke. And
no
so
joke.
we as Americans, we're soft. We don't get it.
No.
We don't get it at all.
No. We just listen to CNN. That's good enough. We're certainly not going to go there and see, So you just got to read some books from the people that lived it.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Solzhenitsyn, read some of his stuff. He was there. It's terrifying. I do all this to say we don't want this to happen here.
Right.
We don't want this to happen here. This is why the pushback.
Yeah.
So here's from the introduction of the book, The Naked Communist by Cleon Skousen, is a terrible and awesome hate all other men in his own image. Such became the goal and all-consuming ambition of Karl Marx. Not that he would have made each man equal to himself. In fact, it was quite the contrary. The image he hoped to construct was a great human colossus, with Karl Marx as the brain, the builder, and all other men serving him as the ears, eyes, feet, hands, mouth, and gullet. In other words, Marx surveyed the world and dreamed of the day when the whole body of humanity could be formed into a gigantic social image which conformed completely to Karl Marx's dream of perfect society. To achieve this goal, Marx required two things. And this is where it applies to our topic today, John. First, the total annihilation of all opposition. And in the LGBT lobby, that is the goal. The annihilation of opposition, the making it so that people cannot speak their mind.
It is direct opposition to the notion of actual free speech.
Totally. And that's got Supreme Court stuff written all over it. I mean, it's the ADF, they're the busy organization almost exclusively because of the LGBT and the Department of Education.
Right.
And the second is the downfall of all existing governments, all economics, and all societies. Then, he wrote, I shall stride through the wreckage as a creator. The second thing he needed was a new kind of human being. And this is the scary part. He visualized a regimented breed of Pavlovian men. I don't know if you guys remember Pavlov's dog, where you could bring him food and the dog would react, and then you could ring the bell and the dog still reacted without the food. That's what he's talking about. Pavlovian men whose minds could be triggered into immediate action by signals from their masters. He wanted a race of men who would no longer depend upon free will, ethics, morals, or conscience for guidance. Perhaps without quite realizing it, Marx is setting out to create a race of human beings conditioned to think like criminals. And that crosses a lot of different current stories, right? What's the problem with our cities? They're infiltrated with criminals.
Right.
What's the problem with our society? There is no morals. Well, that is a communist agenda. Now, is it the communist agenda that's at fault? No, we're at fault.
Yeah.
God, what did we do? We told God, we'll make up my own moral. We'll do our own moral thing. And guys like Karl Marx and the people that push this agenda are applauding. Excellent. Keep that up.
Right.
That's what we're looking for. Why? Because a man will do things he would not do with a conscience reserving him.
Right.
And so that's the society we live in, is men will do it all day without consequence.
Yeah.
And so here's another section that I'll leave it at that. That'll be enough for now. So this is what the author calls him. He calls him Homo Marxian, which means a Marxist man. or
Homo Marxian.
Homo Marxian. Yep,
Okay.
which is just means like a man after Marx's own heart, someone that would be like Karl Marx.
Right.
So he uses this title exclusively for this next passage because Homo Marxian considers himself to be made entirely of the dust of the earth. He pretends to no other role. He denies himself the possibility of a soul and repudiates his capacity for immortality. He believes he had no creator and has no purpose or reason for existing except as an incidental accumulation of accidental forces in nature. Being without morals, there it is again. He approaches all problems in a direct, uncomplicated manner. Self-preservation is given as the sole justification for his own behavior, and, quote, selfish motives or, quote, stupidity are his only explanations for the behavior of others. With Homo Marxian, the signing of 53 treaties and subsequent violation of 51 of them is not hypocrisy, but strategy. The subordination of other men's minds to the obscuring of truth is not deceit, but a necessary governmental tool. Marxist man has convinced himself that nothing is evil which answers the call of expediency. He has released himself from all the confining restraints of honor and ethics which mankind has previously tried to use as a basis for harmonious human relations.
I cannot even begin to say everything that went through my mind when you're reading that. But one of the things that stuck out when you talk about it must be expedient in the nature of, hey, we need to hurry and do this. Two things pop into my mind right away. That especially when it's very evident, first of all, that morality is an accountability. Having a set of morals that do not move sets the accountability so that humans do not destroy themselves. And that is true in all manners of social gathering, that where there's a strong moral, and that has to be understood where it's come from. I mean, I've seen the LGBTQ community on Facebook and gay community on Facebook call, for example, President Trump immoral for doing things that I've seen the scriptures would consider moral, like letting for, look at them take all these people back across the border. And the phrase is, it is immoral. And so the twist on what morality is begins to change, which is why it's important to stand for the morality that we do. But back to the idea of hurry up or expedite. Hurry up. The shot.
Yep.
Hurry up. So that got hurried and pushed through with no accountability to morality whatsoever. Is this even moral, what we're doing? That got pushed. Hurry up.
Yep.
And the other one is a lie that continues to be debunked over and over and over and over, and yet it remains a political point. The earth is going to be destroyed in 20 years.
Yeah.
That started 30 years ago.
Yep.
And it continues to be propagated as the thing that we're supposed to do to save the planet. The reason it has to happen. Why? This needs to be expedited. We need to hurry up. All the Swedish 10-year-old blonde girls of the world.
Oh, boy.
Right? We failed them. And here it is. Now it's coming right up in the Marxist ideology. First, there has to be a hurriedness to it. It needs to hurry up without a thought whatsoever to the moral.
Right. Exactly.
Homo Marxian.
Homo Marxian. We call it just the Marxist man, just the person that supports Marxism. And I've heard it said, well, who cares? What do you mean Marxist? What do you mean communist? And it's a template is what it is. I argue it's a template. It's a way to establish power to a very few over a very many.
Right.
And by power, I mean everything. Yeah. The way you think, the way you talk, what you want, the way you raise your kids, the religion you purport to support, your family environment, your moral environment, it controls everything. And ironically, that's what the book of Revelation talks about.
Yeah.
A guy doing that exact same thing by penalty of death.
Yeah.
If you don't.
Yeah.
In particular, if you don't worship him. And so this is not just obscure. This is not something you just throw away or maybe a conspiracy. This has been pretty active in the world for some time and very, very active in the United States for quite a while as well. And we heard this under the title of deep state. Well, it's the same exact kind of thing going on here.
Right. The other thing that has been extremely dangerous in this, and the reason why we are even choosing to talk about this during such an odd idea of taking an entire month to celebrate homosexuality, celebrate people's individual choice
Yes.
to have same sex. Where again, those soldiers who have fallen, we give them a day.
If we're lucky,
If
and
we're
most people
lucky.
don't even know.
No, they don't, and that's not taught as such. And so, what is so odd about this is that in the Homo Marxian, the Marxist man, the new goal is a unification based on equality of not of outcome.
Right.
And we hear that talked about all
Right,
the time on
right.
social media networks. All the college campus debaters are out there talking about this, and they're saying, that we don't believe in equality of outcome, equality of opportunity.
Right.
And equality of outcome comes from a different standard altogether. And so, if you're standing on that side at all, the problem with that, which is being it's becoming huge so much that we would standardize. Well, look, if that's a man who's 6'1", that's unfair because there are some men who are 5'10". If that's a guy who's 5'10", that's unfair because there are some men that are 5'3". Well, what if a woman gets all the way up to 6'7"? This is the absurdity of it.
I know.
And then in this single linear thinking of a homogenous idea, one single idea where everything's the same, well, that's what same sex is. That's what homosexuality, that's what same sex marriage is. It's like, look, we are equal. We are the same. We think the same. Men having relations with men and women having relations with women. This is so they can get to, you don't have to overcome anything. I mean, you could be intimate with somebody because it's the same idea. When true intimacy comes because two people with opposite make and construct come together through that struggle to find love with one another and actually creates what? Another individual.
Another life.
Something the other two cannot do. Why do we not see the absurdity of this? Because taken to its logical end, we annihilate ourselves.
And taking it to the logical end too of no morality, when they say standard outcome, the Marxist agenda, and here's another shout out. If you want to get online and look up Communist Party USA, just go down and you're going to see the LGBT agenda from top to bottom. So you get rid of morality and you're malleable. You can be pushed around. You're not going to stand up for your neighbor. You're not going to stand up for your kids. You're just going to do what you darn well please because it's all about you, right? It's all about you.
Right.
And when they say equal outcome, the Marxist regime means it. And what they mean by equal outcome is poverty, destitution, and prison time for you and everybody around you.
Right.
That's Marxism.
Yeah.
That's what Stalin did to his own people.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. And how do you explain that to a young person that goes to the university and just gets this fluffy picture that nothing bad has ever happened in the world except in the United States?
Right.
How do you explain that to them? How do you get that into their mind without having to present the reality of that to them in real time? Because once that pendulum swings hard enough towards communism, it's checkmate. Where are you going?
Right.
Who's stepping in to save you now? I mean, it's checkmate. It's what you get. That's what you're going to have. And the idea that, okay, we're going to celebrate Pride Month and this is a good thing for the equal outcome of everybody in this nation will be poverty, destitution, and prison time. I don't make the connection. And again, call it what it is. Take away the people that have chosen that lifestyle. It's a different topic. This topic this is how Marxism works. It knocks down the family unit. Karl Marx was very adamant about that. You don't want a strong family that A, believes in God because you don't need a government if you do. We saw that during COVID. B, he's going to defend his property, right? So if you're going to come in as a Marxist, if that property is yours and you got a family you're protecting, like a biological son or daughter and family, extended family, you're not going to just let them walk in and take that. And they know this.
Yeah.
And they don't want people in the army that have strong family contacts. Mm-hmm. They don't, because when you go to war, you're fighting for you and your family and your nation and your God. They don't want that because you don't just kick those people down.
Right.
It's very difficult. So you soften them up from the ground up.
Right. So I went there, Communist Party USA.
Oh, boy.
Boy, this is an interesting read. I've never been to this website before. And what I've done here, I
apologize in advance.
It's right. I can't. Have you ever heard the phrase, I can't unsee this?
Uh-huh.
And what's interesting is they have some articles that have just been written. And the first article that's being posted right now, June 4th, 2025, is a guy named Doxy Wilkerson, a revolutionary educator. So we're back at the education system. So at the top of all this is an article about education and the importance of this, because the education system is the only way into, and here's the term, indoctrinate an entire society.
Exactly.
But who is the one that gets to decides what's being taught? And what's interesting now is even in the state of Iowa here, Glenn, there was a push for it being mandated that the kids from in all grade school all the way up through 12 would be required of them to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And what happens? Those who are of the socialistic, communistic Marxist party, aka the gay community, the liberal religious
Yep.
community, and all the liberals, they stand up and say, "You can't force us to do that."
Right.
Which is absolutely the greatest form of hypocrisy I hear coming out of their mouths because of what they force kids not to do. Right. So now this is why morality is a big issue, because if a kid walks into a public school with a Bible and sits down, starts reading it,
Yep.
quoting it, or praying from it, right here in the state of Iowa, they're going to say, "Hey, you can't do that." It is unbelievable that the gay community would say, "Hey, you can't do that, but you can't tell us not to this." This is why there has to be a solid moral idea. Now, there's plenty to read on this, and I'm sure I'm going to delve into this at some level, not near as much of my Bible, thank God. You read the Bible for truth, you humble yourself for God so that when you see the lies. So at the bottom of this page, it says this of the Communist Party USA: for democracy, which we're not, for equality, which nobody is, for socialism, which has never worked, for a sustainable future and a world that puts people before profits. So it is an attack.
Sure it does.
It is an attack against the profitability of the free will of people who serve and fear God to take those
totally.
profits and bring them over to this. And right there, it's saying people is the greatest thing above all things. So you're already saying we can't have God as a part of this. I would like to see a party that says that we first and foremost honor and revere God above all things. That's number one.
Yep.
From there, then people. And the governorship, therefore, based on a moral standard set by the Creator. That is why our Constitution already says our rights come from, they are inalienable.
Right.
They can't be taken. They exist for one reason, by our Creator. They acknowledge none of this.
No.
And so that was fun to look up right there. That was very interesting.
If you dig into that more, you can just take CNN or any of the news stations on a daily basis and compare it to that website. They line right up.
Yep.
It is indoctrination 101. They line right up. All the current topics that we debate or talk about now have been brought up by them, and you can see them right on their site. So they're hidden in plain sight, and they've been that way for a while.
Right. And then they have to stick with the party to get what they want, because that's what they want in the end of this is this, and they have to find the party that follows that.
Right.
You know, I used to be pretty critical of conservative talk show hosts and say, "Oh, man, they're just Marxist, man." They said they're just the Communist Party, and I'm just like, no, we just call them Democrats. Stop being so harsh about them like that. But you read this stuff and you're going, oh, this is what they're promoting. This is exactly what they're promoting. But to be critical of Republicans, because I like to do that.
Absolutely.
The problem is with Christianity, with Christians, is that they're going, well, the Republican Party, we have a tendency to rubber band.
We do.
And we go, well, then this is the part. No, you get into your Bible and you read the truth of what morality is and what that really is. And guess what you're going to find out? All parties are struggling right now with what the Constitution really is.
Exactly.
All parties are struggling right now with what the Constitution really is and what its benefit is and how we should stick to it.
It's incredible to watch. I mean, some of the points that Mr. Skousen makes here with the agenda, and this will be kind of the shocking points. I know we don't have like a million years to talk about all this, but I mean, people don't realize that the Communist Party agendas were very specific in the 1950s, very specific. And so if you go through some of these, and there's some that have already happened. You know, I think there's 40 some of these specific ideas that Mr. Skousen came across and published them. And this is some of the stuff that was presented to the Congress in the early 60s. So some of the stuff that is very specific to the point you look at it, you go, holy smokes, this looks like I'm reading, the front page of the Wall Street Journal or USA Today. And it is.
Right.
It talks about number 20, infiltrating the press, gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures, continued discrediting American culture. I mean, turn on the TV.
It's demonized.
It's everywhere, all the time.
All the time.
All the time. Control art critics and discredit art museums. Our plan is to promote ugliness and repulsive, meaningless art. eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech. Why would you do that? The communists know why. They know what happens.
That's right.
And here's the one that for the month today. Again, 1958, Cleason Skousen, naked communist. I'm not making this up. I'm quoting the book.
Right.
Present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy.
Okay, stop right there. I need you to, and I want you to keep reading after this. I got to pick on this point. Matter of fact, would you mind reading that again? It is Gay Pride Month, so we want to honor this statement.
And especially they don't want this. And most of the people that support this have no idea.
Right.
So I'm not even pointing at them saying, hey, you guys are just bad people. They just don't know.
No. Yep.
So this is, again.
I know just the one line. I want the, right. I want
Cleason Skousen.
Right.
1958.
Right.
Way before I was born.
Yep. I'm about to pick on some conservatives right now, but when you read this line, because there's a piece of information here that gets left out by conservative who quote from this.
Yes. Present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity. What does that mean?
Sexual immorality of all levels.
Of all levels, with whoever,
all levels and sorts, right? Yep. And that I've heard quoted and often by Republicans.
Yeah.
But they rarely, if ever, literally, Glenn, today's the first time I've heard you read from the book, and it says promote homosexuality.
Yep. Promote it.
Promote it. Why are conservatives throwing that in there as a part of this point? Why are they pulling that out and just saying, well, it is promiscuity?
That's the issue.
All right.
Right? That's the issue. And again, separate this from the folks that have chosen that lifestyle.
Correct.
Nobody is bad-mouthing them. I'm not telling you ought to do this or that. I'm saying go to your creator.
Yes.
Have the Holy Spirit of God talk to you and offer you redemption. I'm just as guilty as anybody with all kinds of bad stuff. Yep. So I'm going to have to answer to God myself. This is none of that.
That's correct.
This is a distinct agenda against the United States through communism.
Right.
Here's the very next one. And this might be the hardest one for your listeners to check out. Infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with, quote, social religion. Mm-hmm. Discredit the Bible and emphasize the need for an intellectual maturity which does not require a religious crutch. Okay. Done. What's next?
Education and intellect has been touted so highly. The Bible has been considered such a redundant foolery by the intellectual. It is mind-boggling.
Can you imagine that, though, that, again, 1950, infiltrate the church.
Right.
And replace it, revealed religion with social religion.
Yeah.
Just drive down the street down here. Just go anywhere you want.
Yep.
And that's what you'll see is social religion. Eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools. You just talked about it.
Yep.
On the ground that it violates the principles of separation of church and state. That's a whole nother issue. Discredit the American Constitution by calling it inadequate, old-fashioned, out of step with modern needs, a hindrance to cooperation between nations on a worldwide basis. Discredit the American founding fathers. Present them as selfish aristocrats who had no concern for the common man. Again, this is the front page of the news. Every single one of these. Belittle all forms of American culture and discourage the teaching of American history on the ground that it was only a minor part of the bigger picture. We had this conversation not too long ago that there was an alderman in the Chicago area that proposed a bill to stop teaching American history.
Are you serious?
No joke. No joke. I mean, that's Illinois. That's communism.
Right.
So you look at these communist models, go to Illinois. What else do you want to see?
Well, thankfully, I don't have to drive far to experience it.
Infiltrate and gain control of big business. Interesting, because this month reflects that. And ironically, a lot of big businesses are stepping back from this. They're going, you know what? I build aerospace parts, and that's what we're going to stick to.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not going to promote communist agenda. We're going to build aerospace parts. Why is that a crime?
Right.
Why is that a problem? That's what you ought to do, right? Well, they understand this. You get business to promote this. There's the dollars behind it.
Yes.
There's the lobby behind the congressman.
Yes.
Who changed the Department of Education goals. I mean, go right down the line. Discredit the family as an institution. Encourage promiscuity and easy divorce.
Iowa has that. It's called no fault. It's called no fault divorce. That's the law.
Oh, it's
you don't have to. I know.
Coincidental, bro. That's all. Just coincidental.
Right.
There's nothing here. Promote easy divorce. That's what they do. Emphasize and I hope someone's listening. Emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of their parents. Attribute prejudices, mental blocks, and retarding of children to suppressive influence of their parents.
There's so much I want to say right now.
Where do you start?
Where do you start?
Where do you start?
I know we've had discussions about this. I believe the best thing anybody can do right now is homeschool. I'm not opposed to anybody public schooling. I'm saying, or private schooling, because the number one thing is parenting. But we now have the next generation of parents who have been trained by this societal idea that I don't know if they have the strength to come back to what is moral and true in accordance with the scriptures. And you have to consider that as a parent. Again, you have to parent well to have kids come out of any education system, come out from that.
You do.
And where you draw that. But I'm going to tell you right now, I've got a grudge, and I'm going to let this be an opportunity for as a matter of record.
Okay.
And a matter of record. Because what I've been fighting since my kids have been out of school, and I saw it early on when they were all kind of going through high school, you saw this. And I see this in the educational community. It is amazing to me, I'd like to soft sell, but it's impossible. The arrogance of this isn't every individual, but the arrogance of the community of public education is daunting, because every single one of them I've ever talked to has challenged me in their heart by their arguments by saying, who are you, parent, to judge what we're doing here in the school? And I just want to say, that is a pathetic idea to have, considering that you are public school. I mean, I don't know what else to say to that.
Yep.
You are a system that we have put in place that you must bow to my desires if I can get enough people on board with it. And for you to consider me as foolish or non-parental towards my own children, as if you have an idea for my child that is in any way better, means you are declaring you are the creator of the universe. And that does not exist in my world, my friend. That does not exist in the world. We had at Johnston schools, which there are many tremendous teachers that I loved and did well, but I'm talking about an ideal and a concept. At one point, Glenn, we were in the ministry you're sitting now, what we were doing, promote the gospel, preach the gospel of Jesus Christ, right? A teacher actually suggests to one of our children, your parents are cultists at school.
I have no doubt in my mind.
I found this out, and this I swear to this day. At that moment, I knew when I found this out after the fact. All my kids are graduating, all this gone. When I found this out, I can tell you right now, I know the day my kid was told that based on who they were when they came home. I will never forget that day, and I'll tell you right now, if I would have known it that day, there would have been some stinking heads rolling at Johnston High School. I keep using the term Johnston because that's where my kids went. And if people get ticked off of me, I don't care, because there was so much horse crap going on there. When you have a teacher say your parents are cultists, well, what makes them cultists?
I know.
But they're reading from the Bible. Oh my gosh, are they kumbaya-ing? and it's absolutely unbelievable. I'm telling you, and I was told it was a male gentleman, and apparently he knew that he was, considering the party. But anyway, I'm telling you right now, if I ever find out who that guy is, the love of Jesus is going to confront the heck out of him, and he's going to know my thoughts on that. But this is what you're talking about. They feel they have the knowledge to be able to tell their kids, separate from the parents. I oppose that all day long. I'll oppose any institution that tries to do that.
Well, and to reiterate on that statement, I mean, there are great teachers that are terrified of any notion of speaking about any of this.
Yes.
Or they lose their job and they get whacked by the Department of Education. The Department of Education at the federal level wants your kid toast, period, full stop. They've set the whole engine up to do that.
Yep.
Now, there's not teachers throughout the country that are along with that at all.
Right.
But you know better than to push back against the man, or you're going to lose your job.
Right.
Just like COVID. You push back if you're a nurse in a hospital, you're going to lose your job.
Yes.
So it's up to good Americans to stand in the gap for them and say, hey, listen, this isn't right. Yeah. Why are you making them say this? Why are you making them do this? You see the Marxist agenda and you're like, oh my gosh, This has been going on for some time, and this is what it is now. And for a parent to put your kid in that environment, oh yeah, well, I'll keep an eye on them, and they should be. You have no idea. You really have no idea, and it's not getting better. It's not getting better.
No.
You go to any corporation, go to the military, go to an airline, and say, hey, what's the product we're getting now?
Yeah.
Committed, working hard, good people that have studied. No.
Yeah.
Now, do I mean that dynamically across the ranks? Nope, by no means. There are some good people out there that are still doing it, but by and large, manufacturing. Just heard a podcast with Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. Love the guy. He's a manufacturing guy. I can't find workers. That's my biggest problem. We can't find workers. So, I mean, that's another topic for another day, but it's not like this thing is benefiting us. And so what do? To honor Memorial Day, we tolerate it. All those dead men that were on the beaches in Normandy, we said, yeah, thanks for dying for me. We're just going to sit on our lazy butts and do nothing.
Yep.
We're going to let our kids' generation get destroyed. We're going to let them take their money, their future. We're going to make sure that they don't know anything when they get out of school to survive. We're going to berate their parents. We're going to go after agendas, like LGBT for a month, and then despise and ridicule everybody else. And so what do? And that's the thing. And I'm not one of those guys that say, oh man, we just turn the corner here and vote Republican. It's going to all be better. No. We've talked about this before. I think we're fighting in rear guard here.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to get better by any stretch, but man, I'm remiss if I can think of a soldier, and I fly with colleagues that have children that have died in the military, and to sit there and dishonor them by sitting on my butt and doing nothing. Well, yeah, I remember him. Yeah, he died. What a disgrace. Yeah. That soldier that I brought home in the belly of my airplane and had to face his daughter and his son and his wife. Dude, no thing. I better do something.
Yeah.
I better do something because that kid's growing up without a dad.
Right now, the only people who are using the rights that men and women died for is the LGBTQ community. They're using the rights.
And the communist left.
And probably one of the greatest way we can dishonor that is to keep our mouth shut and be pacifists and pretend as if Jesus was a pacifist, because Jesus was not a pacifist.
He wasn't.
He gave his life over to the Father to die on our behalf. But if you watch everything he says and everything he does, I get this gets a little. You as a Christian, folks, as you're listening to this podcast, if you're a Christian, you have a tendency to sit in back 40 and you don't want to rock the boat. I just want to say something. Let's do something different with our lives now to honor these lives that we're given. Do something different now with your life in relationship. If you have Satan in control of your life and you know it and you're struggling, for crying out loud, confess your sins before the Lord God and do something different because Jesus died for you. And along those lines, men and women who have given their lives because they believed in the saving power of God, or at least the freedom, therefore, that comes from inalienable rights that are given to us by our Creator. I just need to make a call here for people. It is time to honor the dead.
It is.
By talking, speaking the truth. It is time to stop dishonoring those lives lost by being silent and acquiescing to all that is immoral. And this is not, like you, Glenn, bro, I've got a list of horse hockey crap I have done against the holiness of God. And it has broken me to the grace of God and that need. We are not here to say we are above any thought or idea in this, but God is not gracious if he is not holy. And we as a people, if we have experienced the grace of God, we must, by the love of God, declare the holiness of God and say, there is morality. Even in my own weakness, there is a right and there is a wrong, and man has not set that forth. God has set that forth. And that is how we could actually honor those who have paid with their lives in this. And we are, in many ways, we are not honoring that fact by staying silent or not speaking. Yeah, but I don't want to be mean. Well, that's up to you. But don't not say and speak the truth, because there's only one counter to this. And yes, we see it from the top down. Trump ran on this a little bit. He said, well, I want to abolish the national education thing. Well, Ronald Reagan wanted to do that too, because it was established by the administration right prior to him. And he saw how dangerous it was then. I would like to point out the Republican Party has not made this an issue for a long time. And when we say, yeah, but now all the colleges are indoctrination stations, well, we didn't do anything about it. Nothing's been done about it.
No.
And we keep thinking we're going to get this done with votes. I think it's time to wake up, because it needs a new level and a new caliber of citizen to get active. And right now, politicians which aren't listening or aren't willing to do what is brave. I'm just saying everything you're deciding is bringing us as citizens to a different caliber and level you don't understand.
Yep.
And speaking and doing has to be a part of what we're doing to counter untruths.
And we talked about that a little bit at men's group here recently. It's up to us to make that decision for ourselves. We have a responsibility. We can't sit and say, "Oh, I hope the government does well. Vote, and maybe that guy will do it." No. We've got a responsibility to teach our kids to work hard, to be exemplary citizens, to do the best that we can, to model God in the best way we can, to ask forgiveness when it's necessary, to love our neighbors, to love and pray for those that persecute us. All these things that God would have us to do. We must. It's our personal responsibility. Somebody else can't do that in my place. I will be accountable to God for that part of my life. And to people get this thought that no, I'll be fine because I've got some lobbyist that says I'm good. God's not going to ask you about the lobbyist. He's going to ask you about you. And that's where, as Americans, not only do we honor those people, but we also put ourselves in a place of humility. I'm not going to change the world. There's no organization I'm going to be a part of that will change the world. You know,
that's right.
And God, in His mercy, decides to. That's awesome. Up to Him, but I'm still obligated. I have to do what He's asked me to do.
RFK, famous speech, ask not. Am I thinking this correctly? What your country can do for you?
Probably his brother, John F. Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the assassinated John. Oh, forgive me.
Yep.
John F. Kennedy. Incredible speech. I'm sure by many people it can be taken different ways, but that just comes to my mind right now.
Yep.
Ask not what your country can do for you. And right now, everybody's just demanding, come on, country, do something for me. He says, ask what you can do for your country. And I would like to suggest to people right here, right now, today, you ask the Lord, what can you do? Because this country needs it.
Absolutely.
And you need to do it. And you need to stand on the word of God. You need to live a life of conviction, and you need to bring a moral compass to the table, and you need to open up your mouth, and you need to talk, because it is long past due. And I don't know what saving is going on anymore. We need to stop thinking, hey, because I have a Facebook post, it's going to go viral and I can change the world. You and nobody's going to change the world. Jesus is coming back, and things are going to get set straight.
Yes, they will.
And it's not going to be a republic. Constitutional republic. It's not going to be a democracy. It's going to be a kingdom, and His righteous hand is going to rule it. And I just pray to God that we get a hold of this and start saying, you know what, this, and yes, it's apropos. It's important that we're doing this on this month. We talked about this before we came in. There's billboard signs all over Des Moines right now, and somebody's paying for them, so I guess they can have them up there.
Oh yeah.
And it's to celebrate the month, and that's sad. It's sad because it's an indoctrinational billboard. It's contrary to the Word of God. It's contrary to the definition of love in every single way possible. It is self-defeating and teaches us to destroy ourselves by celebrating a choice of sexuality that does not induce love, come from love, or promote creation from the act of love, with the accountability of the responsibility of raising the next generation by bearing the next generation. By scientific definition, homosexuality cannot create children. So the billboard just says love, 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 all over. Love, love. I can't remember. I couldn't count it however many times. Love, love, love. And the last word is pride. I need to let people know that if pride is celebrated, there's nowhere in the scriptures that backs that concept.
Never.
Christ, who humbled Himself before God, who asks us, and how many gays have you ever talked to who say, but people just need to humble themselves? Where's their humility? Where's their humility? Well, we don't have a month called Pride. Like Easter's coming, right? Easter's coming next year, right? Or Christmas is coming. And you know what? We're going to nickname Jesus's celebration of His birth Pride Month.
No.
Or His resurrection. We're going to label it Pride Month. So pride, which is the one destructive force of nature. It's interesting to me that Satan, the first ever to leave the presence of God, and the Bible teaches in the moment of a lightning bolt, because for one moment he walked in pride and he had to depart from the holiness of God instantaneously. And we celebrate a whole month of it. Come on, folks. I'm not against anybody who chooses this lifestyle. We have all sinned.
Right.
But if we're going to celebrate this month, I'm just going to say, if you're a Christian and you're going, well, we need to celebrate. No, stop it. Stop it right now.
Right.
And go to your homosexual or lesbian, gay or lesbian person and say, I love you. But to love you, I need to tell you something. This is a no-go. You're destroying yourselves.
I know. It's hard to see, but I mean, the flags that are flying are much more colorful than a red flag with a hammer and sickle bar in the middle.
Oh,
And unfortunately, that's the reality of it.
it is.
And that's a notification to all Americans, you're on borrowed time. You're on borrowed time. That's the macro. That's the macro. And so when I see that, it's like, I just assume they fly a communist flag because at least it would be obvious. But that's why they don't.
That's right.
That's why they don't.
Yeah, it's got to look good. It's got to look feasible.
Well, and here's let me share this little article real quick before
we got time. I got a couple of points.
How much time we got left? I mean, to the point that this has gotten. Here's a political organization called Gays Against Groomers.
Yes,
and I appreciate what they say. I really do.
This is what we were talking about at the beginning, that even the gay community is kind of going, wait a minute,
what's going on here?
Yeah.
Gays Against Groomers is a 501c4 nonprofit of gays, lesbians, and others in the community who oppose the sexualization, indoctrination, and mutilation of children under the guise of radical LGBTQIA plus activism. Where moms, dads, couples, siblings, husbands, wives, families, friends, typical gay American men and women who live our lives just like everyone else. Our mission, twofold, is to end the war on children being carried out in our name and to reclaim the community we once called our own, which is at this point has become unrecognizable. What we are witnessing is mass-scale child abuse being perpetuated on an entire generation, and we'll no longer sit by and watch it happen. From its inception in 2022, Gays Against Groomers has shut down family-friendly drag shows aimed at children, lobbied for bills preventing child abuse, and mutilation, given speeches at school board meetings, organized rallies and protests, spoken out from within the community, and endorsed candidates who unequivocally condemn the current state of our gender movement as much as we do. And here's a fascinating thing. Last year, this organization was put on as a hate group under the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Actually called them a hate group.
They're listed. Get on Southern Poverty Law Center and look at hate groups. Gays Against Groomers is on the list.
You know what? I've seen that article. I have seen that.
What? That's kind of homophobic in my mind. Why would they do that?
Totally.
What did these guys do?
Right.
What do they hate?
Maybe it's an idea that's a little too anti-communist.
A little too anti-communist. Anyway, yeah, so that's fascinating to see. Well, they all agree. No, they don't.
Right.
And they're all pushing, no, they're not. And no. Again, that's how communism works. You take the brush and you paint the whole picture red.
Right.
And you don't include anything else. And these folks are doing a noble thing by stepping up and go, hey, wait. Don't put us in this. There's other things you'll have to deal with God about, as I will. But this is never, ever, ever talked about. Right. That this part of that community goes, wait a minute, we're not on board with all this.
Right. Glenn, I have to go back to this because this is a question that has to be answered, because as one of the things that you see come through the chat of social feeds, that one of the complaints of the that people choose the gay lifestyle is that we'll look at Marxism, and this is one of the reasons they try to call Trump a Nazi, right? They equate him with the great Adolf Hitler. And so Adolf Hitler and their cultural ideals were against homosexuality. Marxism and their cultural ideas were against homosexuality. Then why would it be that they would actually say we need to promote homosexuality? Because they're saying the problem with those groups the reason those were bad is because they hated homosexuality. So why would they try to intend to promote it?
Yep.
And that's the question we need to ask. So why then would they promote homosexuality in the U.S. if they were anti-gay themselves?
Yeah, that's the tool. That's the mechanism. In fact, I had a story here. See if I can even find it. Fairly recently, yeah. Let me see.
You're good with that because we were talking about that. I mean, you read out of The Naked Communist that there was actually a promotion of promiscuity and homosexuality, and yet they, as countries, said no, we don't let this happen here.
Yeah, story July 19th, 2022. LGBT propaganda faces complete ban in Russia.
So LGBTQ is facing a complete ban in Russia.
Correct.
Well, why would Marxist ideology want to put homosexuality in the United States but ban it and its ideals in Russia?
And any other communist nation. China, same thing.
Right.
Well, obviously, I mean, yeah.
because they know what
They know what it does.
they know what it does. They know what it'll do. They know how deadly it is in
Absolutely.
a society. They are certainly going to promote an idea that begins to lower the population. They are certainly going to promote an idea that begins to cause people to not be God-fearing. They're certainly going to promote an idea that starts to bring an ideal to a free country that would shut down its freedoms, and they would be done from within. And Abraham Lincoln stated it, that if this country were to be defeated, it will happen from within.
Yep.
And these countries know how to place their ideals of what they know also doesn't work into our country. And we have the foolishness to celebrate pride, celebrate gay choices, and say this is freedom, and not even understand we're shooting ourselves every single time we do it every year and promote it. We are destroying the fabric of this country from that, which would incapacitate us as a country to even live constitutionally and successfully or viably. And these countries now have their inroad to make us what? Part of a utopian ideal under one scope.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And once people really get the notion that this is what's going on, then they look elsewhere. They change their idea. They change their mind. If this is a fifth column involved in our country and its sovereignty and its freedom, everybody loses.
That's right.
It doesn't pick favorites. If we collapse financially with the debt spending going off the charts, everybody loses. And the idealism of communism and some of these other social things, and it talked a lot about social agendas, is to keep people's mind off that, to make it something else that it's not, right, so that people don't pay attention to this. In fact, I'll finish with this one last quote. Again, this is the Naked Communist, Cleon Skousen. If the student will read the reports of congressional hearings together with available books by ex-communists, he will find all these communist objectives described in detail. Furthermore, he will come to understand how many well-meaning citizens have become involved in pushing forward the communist program without realizing it. They became converted to communist objectives because they accepted superficial communist slogans. Soon, they were thinking precisely the way the communists wanted them to think. And that's where we are. So to get to the truth, to get out of this mindset, to realize this isn't a joke, and this isn't just somebody loves somebody and don't speak badly about me. It's none of that. It is a catastrophe coming in this, for sure in this country if we proceed this way. And I think we won't stop. So I'm not so stupid to think, oh man, we're just going to do a U-turn. I don't think so. But hopefully more people at least look at this and go, if this is true, then maybe that end time statement in Revelation is true. And anyone that's listening to this, get Revelation out and read it.
Right.
At least so far in this country, we can still buy a Bible. So far, get that last book and read it.
Yes,
it's not pleasant.
That's exactly right.
And it's a little alarming. And so we can't just be an ostrich and go put our head in the sand and say, well, we're just going to ignore it. We can't, for the sake of our kids and grandkids.
I think this conversation is important for people to have, and it's going to be important for couples to have, and it's going to be important to have around the dining room table. I see people at protests who are elderly that I would otherwise expect to be constitutionalists ranting on these slogans and protecting such communism. I see pastors doing the same.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of level of guilt is going on in this country that people that would otherwise stand for truth have chosen, just as you have read, to fall into these foolish slogans and meaningless slogans to tear up a country. But we're seeing it even today. Get into the Word of God. Humble yourself before the Lord. And if you're in a way that you know that sin's got a hold of you, and worse yet, if you're so proudful you don't think it ever is, we got to get on your knees, get into the Scriptures, get into Revelation. And I'm going to recommend again, and I'm going to promote this one more time, the Jones County Republican Women is having Tim Barton up, Wall Builders, on June 21st. I would encourage you to go to the Jones County Republican Women's site and look this up. And this is another way we can inform ourselves on the Constitution, the history of this country, and rightfully align our lives as Christians to what work we need to do now, which is to open our mouths and also to do this. Lay aside the idols that our fathers used to worship and decide today whom we will serve. And if we will not serve the Lord, choose it this day. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.